Virgin Islands, and happy Paradise Tuesday, and this bright sunny Tuesday here in Santa Cruz. Today is April 21st, 2026, and today I have two special announcements I'd like to make. First, let me welcome you to At the Table with Crucian Educator. This is yours truly, Verdell Peterson. It's a pleasure and honor to be serving as the host for this 1 hour radio talk show and the number one radio station in the Caribbean, WSDX. You are listening on your radio dial to 970 AM. As I said, I have two special announcements. Both of these announcements involve distinguished Virgin Islanders. It's sad news, and some of you probably have heard already of the passing of the legendary John Bell, a former senator, longtime senator, and the correctional facility is named after him. That was the legislation that was sponsored by his friend who preceded him in death, the legendary Alicia Chucky Hansen. And I learned yesterday John Bell has earned his wings. And although he's not here with us in the physical realm, his legacy will forever be cherished. His influence is everlasting. I think everybody will recall his contributions as a senator, and definitely he will be missed. So I want to take this opportunity to express my condolences to his loved ones, especially his family, his children. He'll be missed, definitely. And so let's take a moment of silence to recognize our loss and to also rejoice in the legacy. Thank you. I have another special announcement. Today, I'm expecting a guest in the studio, a distinguished Virgin Islander, probably no stranger. I don't know if he's going to bring any surprising news, but when he arrives, I'll let him introduce himself. I would like to remind you that this talk show focuses on topics such as constitutional development, governance, election laws, Virgin Islands history, culture, and heritage, civics, etc. I do like to hear people's opinions and thoughts on these topics, and I avoid topics such as political ideologies. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and their ideas. And I know politics, sometimes the conversation can get heated, but I do talk about the process, the election process, but I don't get into much of discussing political ideologies and party politics. I avoid religion, conspiracy theories, mythologies, and personality conflicts. As I said, everybody's entitled to an opinion, a belief, theory, ideas, etc. But you're not entitled to your facts. Recently, I heard about a big announcement, a special announcement. Now, I was anticipating something that maybe my expectations were too high. I don't know. I was expecting on Saturday to hear from a prospective political candidate something that I didn't know already, something new, or even maybe a big endorsement from a very influential Democrat. And unfortunately, I was disappointed and I waited patiently to hear, well, okay, is it this? Is it to announce the candidacy, which everyone, I would think at this point, this election cycle, we're hearing all the names of all who may be running for governor, gubernatorial teams, for senator, etc. So it was just a confirmation of a rumor. At this point, there are aspirants, prospective candidates. Nobody has officially been certified as a candidate to be placed on the ballot. But it's election season. There was a special announcement that I heard. I thought it was special because when I hear special, I'm thinking, tell me something I don't know already. I'm aware of all the issues, the persistent ones at least, plaguing the territory. Some have persisted for decades. The issue with WAPA. GRS is not permanently fixed. The hospitals, healthcare, that seemed to be in shambles. But I wouldn't say it's all bad. Improvements are being made in the areas of education, uh, public works, other areas of the government. But perhaps it's going too slow. People really have a high expectation and think things could be done within 4 years by a gubernatorial team or administration. But sometimes it takes, before a project is completed, it sometimes goes on into the next administration. Well, we know there will be an election in November. The voters will be going to elect the 10th governor of the US Virgin Islands. And we know that in the Virgin Islands of the United States, there's a gubernatorial team. It's not elected separately. You have a gubernatorial candidate and a lieutenant governor candidate making up that team. I'm looking forward to hearing from all the candidates who are seeking public offices. But as usual, during the political cycle, you have a lot of confusion and a lot of debacle going on. I like to get the facts, but I would hope that candidates don't just regurgitate issues and offer viable solutions. And one thing I would like to say to all the prospective candidates, I know some supporters could be very passionate, but I will hope they will send a message to condemn mudslinging, character assassination, and just deal with issues. There's no need. We all in this together. We're Virgin Islanders. If you call the U.S. Virgin Islands your home, and I believe most of us want to see a better Virgin Islands, but everybody have their choice. We need to respect people's choice. And supporters of candidates, you are doing a disservice to your candidate when you engage in the mudslinging and personal attacks. Don't do it. It's not nice. We need to be respectful of each other. It's a small community. We live here. It's not like a state where you may never see your governor in person. You may never see your senator in person. This is Virgin Islands, United Small. The largest one island is St. Croix, is 84 square miles. St. Thomas, 32 square miles. Now, roughly, the population of the U.S. Virgin Islands is about, let's say, 80,000. We'll never know the exact count. But I don't believe it's more than 100,000 people residing here. So it's a relatively small community. We're going to see each other. Let's be respectful. So when I express my feelings of disappointment about this big announcement, this special announcement, I was personally attacked. This is a democracy. This is representative democracy that we have here in the U.S. Virgin Islands under the U.S. flag. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. You have free speech, your First Amendment right. However, you cannot defame a person. You cannot make a false statement. Knowingly false statement, because you could be charged with defamation of character. So I would say to all those supporters of that particular candidate, exercise judgment, focus on what makes your candidate the best, instead of personally attacking those who oppose, which I would not say I'm in a position, because as a talk show host, I feel obligated to remain neutral. I do not tell people how to vote or who to vote for. I respect their judgment, their wisdom, their intelligence, that they will make the best choice based on their criteria. Everybody could set their own criteria. And I know in the last gubernatorial race, when Governor Bryan was elected to his second term, there was one event in which the Colossonian Derby improvised a song and mocked the gubernatorial team a pursuit then. However, that was not endorsed by the Brian Roach administration. I said facts can be verified. People can go and research for themselves. There was an apology issued by Governor Albert Bryan, who also made it clear he was the first governor to participate in a march for the LGBTQ community. So again, to all the prospective candidates, you should not condone the mudslinging, character assassination. I will hope you would stick to the issues and offer solutions. Now, my guest isn't here yet. I don't know if my guest is going to arrive, but that was the second special announcement. So until the guest arrives, I have three questions that I gave to all the presenters, whether they seek in public or office or not. And first question, in your role in this community, what ideas you have to enhance Virgin Islands pride, enrich the history, promote the culture, and in general make the Virgin Islands of the United States a better place. Now that's the official title of the US Virgin Islands. That's official. But it's proper to refer to it or appropriate as just the US Virgin Islands. Everybody know everyone should know we're talking about the four main islands that make up this unincorporated territory of the United States, along with the Keys. You have St. Croix the largest, St. Thomas, St. John, the smallest water island. Then you have numerous keys. These islands are known as the US Virgin Islands. And as I said, US Virgin Islands is an unincorporated territory. It's being governed by a de facto constitution. We don't have our own constitution. I recommend this book, The Revised Organic Act of the Virgin Islands, 1954, Project Director Malik Siku. So I found that the silence about constitutional development is deafening. I haven't been hearing much. I haven't been hearing much about the Sixth Constitutional Convention. However, I have a question pertaining to that. The Sixth Constitutional Convention has been established by law. The US Virgin Islands is authorized by the Congress to draft a constitution for the US Virgin Islands. This law is known as Public Law 94-584. So a sixth constitutional convention has been established. The sixth constitutional convention has been established, but there has been extension. I cannot tell you for sure when this draft will be submitted, but I would like to raise your awareness of it. I would like to know what are some of the amendments you would like to see in this constitutional draft, because whatever is placed in there that's different from the revised organic act will be an amendment to the revised organic act. The name tells you it has been revised, it has been amended many times. When this draft, when this de facto constitution was enacted, first enacted, that was in 1952, 1954, obviously, because that's what it says, revised organic act of 1954. In 1970, we elected the first governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the qualifications to run for office is in the revised organic act. To run for governor and for senator of the for the legislature, it's in the revised organic act. However, we have an opportunity to, is that a call? We have a, okay, I think I'm getting a call.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
Okay. If that was a caller trying to get in, you're welcome to call back. So, unfortunately, my guest that I expected hasn't arrived. So maybe I don't know. Maybe there has been a cancellation, a postponement, whatever. But I'll continue. What ideas you have or suggestions, recommendations to ensure that the sixth constitutional convention will be a success? Because there have been 5 previous constitutional conventions. We still don't have a constitution. We still, the electorate of the U.S. Virgin Islands have yet to ratify a constitution. So until then, we remain governed by the revised Organic Act of 1954. If anyone wishes to call in to address these questions, you're welcome to do so. The numbers are 340-773-0390 and 340-773-0490. So a question I have, what do you consider to be the 5 most important issues that must be addressed by the Virgin Islands government? I've had candidates come in, prospective candidates, who have addressed it, as well as those who are not running for office. But we all in this together. It doesn't matter whether you are an elected official, running for office, a politician, you're part of our community. And unfortunately, we don't hear about ideas of how we could improve the Virgin Islands until time for election. But these persistent issues have been with us, for decades. We who are living here are experiencing the problem. We are aware of the problem. Do we need to be reminded? Do candidates need to just come and give us a litany of all the issues facing the US Virgin Islands and the people? How about coming with tangible plans? And even if you're not elected, because obviously it's by popular votes, the bottom line is whoever gets the most votes for governor will become the 10th elected governor of the US Virgin Islands. Well, so those are the questions I have. If you're interested, call in. If not, my mission and passion is to educate, enlighten, and inspire minds. So I have been doing some research. One of the issues is the eligibility requirements to run for office here in the Virgin Islands. The one that seemed to be the most controversial because of the vagueness of being an inhabitant is delegate to House of Representatives. Of course, you have the three basic eligibility requirements based on federal laws. We're under the US flag. So the US code supersedes the Virgin Islands code. According to the US code, and I made a mistake before. So if I make a mistake, no need for personal attack. I welcome correction, edification, and education. Last time I made a mistake with the age requirement, but to run for delegate to House of Representatives, the candidate must be at least 25 years old, be a citizen of the United States for at least 7 years, and be an inhabitant of the territory of the Virgin Islands. For Guam, if you're running for House delegate to Congress, you have to be an inhabitant of Guam. If you're running to be the delegate to Congress from Northern Mariana Islands, you have to be an inhabitant of that territory. And same for American Samoa. However, for some, the additional requirements based on the local law. For Guam in particular, and this I got the information, everybody could go and look it up. Source is Law Governing 48 USC, that's United States Code. For Guam, the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 NVRA mandates that all states, well, no, I'm reading something else. For Guam, in addition to what's in the United States Code, it says must not have been a convicted felon and must not have been convicted of a misdemeanor involving criminal sexual conduct or crime of moral turpitude. However, here in the US Virgin Islands, to run for delegate to Congress, you can be a convicted felon. Interesting, right? You could be a convicted felon to run for governor. However, you cannot be a convicted felon who has not received a pardon and run for the legislature. So we have to know the election laws. What is relevant to us? I have looked at this National Vote Registration Act of 1993. NVRA mandates that each state designate a chief election official to oversee elections in the states. Okay. Here in the US Virgin Islands, we have an election board and we have a supervisor of elections. Supervises. I don't know, everybody have different interpretation of words and so on and so forth. But let me give you this information here. In some states, that position as election official is known as Secretary of State. Well, not all states have the exact format. 33 states, the election official is known as Secretary of State and is elected by the voters. That's 33 out of 50, the 50 states, okay? And in 6 states, the governor appoints the election official. In 4 states, the official is appointed by the legislature. In 7 states, the official is appointed by a board of elections or a commission of elections. That's like us here. The supervisor of elections is appointed by the board of elections or hired, okay? And notice the title, supervisor of elections. So there's some confusion though about the exact role. 17 states and DC have a board, a commission. That's like us. 17 states have that oversees elections. 2 states have an elected board with limited role. 10 states have a...
Something went wrong. Please try again.
7 states share this responsibility between the Secretary of the State and the Board of Elections. Here in the US Virgin Islands, You need to be aware of.
Sorry, something went wrong. Please try again.
I don't know why it's doing that. Because it's on mute. My phone is on mute. Anyway, um, there used to be separate election boards. There was a St. Croix board, district board of elections, and a St. John.
These are messages.
Oh?
Yeah, those are messages.
Okay.
Yeah, just let you know.
Oh, that's what's happening?
Yeah, those are messages.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll let you know if I see them pop up.
Okay. Before, it was not clear of who's in charge of the elections. But to clarify the matter, in 2022, the Virgin Islands legislation passed Act 8690, in which there was a switch to the supervisor of elections conducting the elections from the board of elections. It's a joint board now. But if my memory serves me correctly, and as I said, not perfect, you can clarify, correct, edify. The last election in 2024 was conducted by the supervisor of elections and certified by the supervisor of elections. The supervisor of elections certified the candidates to be placed on the ballot, but in the last election there was a controversy. I guess because of the switch in 2022. So that was just 2 years prior to the last general election we had. So there was confusion about the role and responsibility of the Board of Elections and the Supervisor of Elections. The Supervisor of Elections disqualified a candidate because after conducting an investigation, found evidence that the candidate for delegate to House of Representatives was not an inhabitant of the territory. Okay? As I said, it's not clear how long someone is, how do you become an inhabitant of the US Virgin Islands. It's not spelled out, it's not explicit. Unlike the other residency requirement to run for public offices, it's spelled out. You have to be here as a bona fide resident. I believe it's 3 years consecutive for senator, 5 years for governor. For delegate to House of Representative, it does not give any number of years, a specific number of years that you have to be an inhabitant. And why an inhabitant and why not a resident? So these are the things that cause confusion. And I would hope these things are clarified before this upcoming general election. But anyone interested, I would suggest that you go do your research and Act 8690, the supervisor of election is solely responsible and authorized to certify the candidates to be placed on the ballots. I hope we are not going to have another debacle this election. And these are two, my understanding, pending court issues, battles, cases, whatever you want to put it. You have prospective candidates suing the supervisor of elections pertaining to this law that says candidate has to report the financial reports. Well, recently there was a special training. Yeah, very recently, that's yesterday. I don't know if it happened, if it was canceled or what. But it was a training for candidates on how to fill out that financial report form. You don't necessarily have to form a political committee, but most candidates do. They form a political committee, they have a board, they have a treasurer, a secretary, a president, think something like that. It's a committee that will manage campaign donations, which have those donations have to be reported to the supervisor of elections, not to board members. Supervisor of elections, hence supervisor election is being sued. Allegedly, the candidates feel the Democratic Party should report. Now, the Democratic Party is just that, it's a political party, it's an organization, a private organization. It's not an organization to elect candidates to public office. It's a party, a political party. And it's not a political committee. So everybody could interpret the law however they feel, but the legal interpretation is made by a judge. So I think that's a good thing. If you're confused about the law, take the matter to court. If you can't come to some kind of arbitration, mediation prior to going to court, the court is the last resort. So I always try to have a meeting of the minds, come together, and see if you can resolve the issue without taking it further. And when that fails, the final recourse is the court. So we'll see what happens with that. If it's I mean, if there's to be a primary election, it will occur the first Saturday in August. And we'll see how, if that matter is resolved, because it has been filed. Then there's another matter been filed. Several Democratic candidates are taking the matter to court. I don't know why they couldn't resolve it beforehand. The issue of whether the Democratic Party is legally obligated to fund a primary elections. I can give you my opinion, but it's only an opinion. Opinions are not facts. And the judge would render the legal opinion and a ruling on the matter if it goes there, because I do think there's hope for remediation before it goes to the court. My understanding of the election law is that the Virgin Islands government must fund all elections. All elections would include primary elections, general elections, runoff elections, and special elections. Okay? Those are 4 categories of elections that I am knowledgeable about. We have had runoff elections before. I recall with Turnbull, it was a one-shot deal. That's it. One shot. Charles Turnbull won the primary. And then in the general election, he wanted a one shot. There was no need for no runoff elections. However, the election after that with former Governor DeYoung, John P. DeYoung Jr., there was a runoff election. Who paid for the runoff election? Was it the Virgin Islands government? Last primary election, 2024, that election was paid for by the Virgin Islands government. I'm just wondering, did something happen between 2024 and this year? Was there an amendment to the law? Why has it become a controversy? I am not understanding that one.
Something went wrong. Please
Okay.
try again.
There's some technical issues going on here, but okay, let's ignore that. For those of you who are listening attentively, continue to do so. Please don't get distracted. Again, if you wish to participate, you're welcome to call in. I do appreciate your listening. If you want to give your input on the WSTX Facebook page, you're also welcome to do so. I do not tolerate disrespect. I focus on issues, not on tearing down anyone. I respect everybody's opinion, your choice. And if you also wish to immerse yourselves virtually into the political, historical, educational, cultural, and social affairs of the U.S. Virgin Islands, you're welcome to join my Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group, Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. I ask one question. Do you support equal treatment for all Americans? And yes, we are Americans. You may disagree, you may have a different feelings, but like I said, facts can be verified based on the dictionary definition. A citizen of the United States is considered an American. However, not all Americans are citizens of the United States. Persons born in American Samoa are not U.S. citizens. They are U.S. nationals. How that work out for the delegate to House of Representatives from American Samoa, I don't have the intricate details. My focus is on the Virgin Islands of the United States. We are one of 5 unincorporated territories. The U.S. Constitution supersedes the Virgin Islands Code. The supreme law of the land includes the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, and rulings from the Supreme Court. We can make our own local laws, but those local laws cannot violate federal laws. So we have to follow the local laws. And remember one case in which the Republican Party took the election system and the supervisor of elections to court because of that requirement of you had to be here 90 days or more to be at least 90 days to register to vote in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Where federally, you cannot exceed 30 days to register to vote in a state. And that law is a federal law and is applicable to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So some of the things that we take for granted, until somebody challenges constitutionally, a constitutional challenge, then we accept it. So I respect those who decide they are going to challenge local laws as it pertains to its constitutionality. And that's what you do. You don't have to accept everything like that, but you don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to resort to degrading your fellow Virgin Islanders. We all in this together. I'm sure most of us want to see a better Virgin Islands, and we all could play that role. And again, if you have your favorite candidates and that you are supporting, that's wonderful. But do yourself a favor and try not to make your candidate look bad, because if you are mocking other candidates or supporters of other teams, that reflects on your candidate. If the candidate does not condemn those kind of behavior, the name calling and the derogatory terms for people, be respectful, because we live in this small community and we see each other. And, I mean, how does it feel if you know it is you trying to make a difference and all somebody could do is just focus on the negativity instead of working collaboratively, cohesively, and cooperatively with the Virgin Islands government to make this place a better place. Respect the choice of the voter, and that's why your vote is confidential. You don't have to tell anybody who you voted for. I am remaining neutral. I am not saying who I'm voting for. I don't wish to influence anybody's public choice. I just would like for everybody to be aware of the election laws, to be familiar with several documents: the Revised Organic Act of the Virgin Islands 1954, the US Code, the Virgin Islands Code, the US Constitution, Public Law 94-584, and also turn a 6-1. Be familiar with the Treaty of Session or Series 629, in which it involves the sales transaction, the purchase of these islands from Denmark by the United States. So we are under the US flag now. If you're born in the US Virgin Islands, you are natural born US citizen. You can become naturalized here in the US Virgin Islands because it's part of the United States. That's what we mean by that. Naturalized. Look at the Amendment 14 in your any person born or naturalized in a state is a citizen of the United States. Okay, we're not a state. Any person born in the United States. Okay, so if you're born in the United States, my interpretation, you're natural born, you're a citizen, you don't have to become naturalized. We have many naturalized citizens here. And one of the first things they do when they become naturalized is they go register to vote. So I'm going to leave you with one last point. Register to vote if you have not registered yet and eligible. And if you're not sure whether you're on the active or inactive list, go and update your information at the election system. For more information, go to vivote.gov. Thank you very much. Live, listen, learn, love, and levitate.